Slick and Shiny Tongue-in-Cheek Productions once more takes you to a trip to one of the communities of Westmoreland County. This one is called Seward, S-E-W-A-R-D, out in the northeast corner of Westmoreland County. And to make this go better, I'm going to put a few pictures on that you can watch as I'm talking to you. And as I'm finished, when I'm finished with the few words of introduction, I'll take you back over the pictures and speak about them one by one. Okay? So, at the beginning, I take a few things from a book called The Valley of the Conemaugh by Thomas Chapman. It was published in Altoona in 1865. And it recalls the fact that Seward was one of the communities on the Conemaugh River. And in the earlier days, it was not called Seward. It was referred to as Nineveh Station, a station on the railroad. In the book, it says it lies 2 miles west of Conemaugh Furnace. There is a water station, a store, and several very comfortable residences, and large quantities of bark, staves, shook, and I might mention charcoal, were shipped from this place. The industry there had a lot to do with the timber around there. It also mentions a place called Conemaugh Furnace, which is just to the east, about 2 miles. And in 1865, it says its stack alone remains. A number of people still live there. And the Johnstown Iron Works once had a furnace there, one of those old-time iron furnaces. And it says it lies right in the gorge of Laurel Hill upon one of the most beautiful stretches of water along the river. The Conemaugh River, after it went through Johnstown, it went through the Conemaugh Water Gap through Laurel Hill. And Conemaugh Furnace was just in the western part of that gap. And from there, the river flowed over to Nineveh Station. It also mentions the original village of Nineveh, which was about a mile north of Nineveh Station. Nineveh, the village, was on a canal. See, before the railroad came through there, the old Pennsylvania Public Works had a canal going through there. And about the old village on the canal, it said, Nineveh is an old decayed village on the canal about a mile north of Nineveh Station. It contains a sawmill, a tavern, and a few dwelling houses. We might also mention that some of the early people there were the Hill brothers. We're talking about Nineveh Station now, which became Seward. The Hill brothers, the Barbers, in particular John Barber, who did the surveying for the early town of Seward. John got his surveying experience in the military. And the Grahams, Hugh Graham, another person considered one of the founders of the town. He did a lot of work for the railroad there and even built at his own expense the original railroad station. Now I think what we should do is switch over and go to the pictures we have. That is what's known as Westmoreland County. An old beat-up map from 1857. And what I'm circling around here was Greensburg, okay? When you go way out here to the corner, you have St. Clair Township, and up here was what we're going to look at. St. Clair Township. This was Nineveh Nineveh station up here. And this was the place that was referred to as Conemaugh Furnace. And for reasons I'm not sure of, this got turned around, so we'll see if we can't straighten it up. Okay. I'm sometimes working with two different computers here, and they don't all do things the same. This is Seward. Another version of it is over here. Seward Borough. It was incorporated in 1904, and when it was incorporated, this part of the town didn't exist. But this is the boundaries of Seward Borough as it exists. Now here is a very old map, and what I did was put this red line on here to show the path of the old canal. The old canal of the Pennsylvania Public Works. Here it shows it coming through the Conemaugh water gap through Laurel Ridge. And after it comes past Conemaugh Furnace, which was about right here, it comes over here to a place called Rogers Mill. And here we get introduced to yet another name for Seward. Before it was ever called Seward, it was called Nineveh. And before that, it was called Rogers Mill. And as Rogers Mill became more prosperous, it became known as Nineveh, which was a place known from the Bible. A lot of these early people were people who read their Bible and knew that Nineveh was the capital of Assyria. Here we get to look at the flowing of the Conemaugh River and how it was then used as a good, more or less level route to lay down the railroad. This was the old Pennsylvania Railroad at Johnstown, coming through the water gap through Laurel Hill. And over here we see Nineveh. That was the old town that related to the canal. And Nineveh station would be built down here. This is a topo map showing the topography in that area. This is Laurel Hill. This is Chestnut Ridge over here. And this is Ligonier Valley between them. And right up here is Seward, or Nineveh earlier, showing the same territory. Johnstown over here on the railroad, coming through the Conemaugh Water Gap, places called Sheridan, Sang Hollow, and Conemaugh Furnace, none of which are there anymore. But there we see Nineveh, which is now called Seward. And the railroad then went down to New Florence and other places along the line, Lockport, Bolivar, whole way out here to Blairsville intersection. This is that old 1857 map again. The main feature here being the Conemaugh River, which the Indians used as a transportation route. This line up here is the old canal. And down here, this shows the railroad. Conemaugh Furnace over here, where the Johnstown Iron Company built their furnace to make iron. And over here was Nineveh, which eventually became known as Seward. Nineveh station. Here it is, the way it was laid out. And an attempt was made to call it Verona. That was the post office's name for it. It had its own post office. But the state didn't like that because there was another Verona in Pennsylvania, so they had to give up the name Verona. And the name Nineveh stayed until sometime in the 1890s they started to call it Seward, and then 1904 when it was incorporated, it was called Seward. I put this map together to maybe, hopefully, make things a bit simpler. The green line up above, that was the canal. The blue line, that was the Conemaugh River. When the railroad came along, that was the red line. These other purplish lines are roads in the area. Now, this is based on mapping from about 1855. And you can see at 1855 there wasn't a lot. These were houses, buildings that were around what we now know as Seward. There wasn't much there, but at that time there was a lot more going on over at Conemaugh Furnace. That's what Conemaugh Furnace looked like when the furnace was operating. You see, this was the actual furnace itself. And most of us, when we see one of these old iron furnaces, this is all we see. Maybe I can show you what I mean. See, when we see an old iron furnace, this is what we see. But when they were running, this is what you saw. This was the old actual furnace. And there was a building here which brought out the stuff to charge the furnace with charcoal and iron ore. And then this part of it down here is where these products would be poured into when the iron was hot and ready to pour into molds. And over the years, usually this stuff would get rotted away or burnt in a fire, and this is all that you'd see. Also at Conemaugh Furnace, after the furnace was done, there was also a coke works which made coke out of coal. Now this shows us in the town of Seward itself. This was the railroad station. This was the railroad going by. Over in the distance was a hotel. That was the Big Springs Hotel in Seward. This, again, shows us the town of Seward in the 1860s. As you look around, there wasn't a whole lot there yet. It took a while for it to develop. This was the railroad station right here. This area up here was a water station for the railroad. The old steamers could stop and take on water. And here was a lumber company, which became very important for making lumber products, which was shipped out. This shows the relationship. You can see a little bit of Seward back here, and you see the railroad coming east. Right at Seward, the train tracks make a bend. These are the guys who worked on the railroad, called a section crew. They took care of keeping it in shape, keeping it in repair, doing the things that had to be done. That's the town itself. Nice little place. That was 1921. We can straighten that out. That was a bank at one time. Sat in Seward. Another town. Look at the town as it is today, as it was back in the day, a long time ago. That's today. That's a long time ago. Again, today. And we see Seward and the power station over here and the mine up here. We move along. The flood in 1977 wiped out this bridge. It was down below Seward. The town itself, better view. School, a wreck in 1942, train wreck. That's the town itself from the air in 1939. I think we've come to an end. We better push a button and say so long now. Bye.